If you are a software engineer who's thinking about moving to Japan in 2026, then this video will show you all that you need to know about how to do that. So let's get started. So the first thing that you need to do once you have decided that you want to move to Japan, and probably the thing that you would do before that really is decide on the goal. So like, what is the reason? What is the impetus that is bringing you to want to come and move to Japan? Do you want to build a life in Japan? Get permanent residency, get a house, build a family, integrate with the communities. Is that like the goal from day one? Do you maybe just want to experience a different way of living? See what it's like to live in another country that you've never, perhaps never been to, perhaps never lived in, and just kind of like see how it is. That's kind of how I started. I was just kind of like, I took Japanese as a second. Almost had a Japanese degree in addition to my computer science degree. But then at some point I was just kind of like, what would it be like to live in Japan? And then I did, and now I'm here, and I have a house and a family and everything. So, the goal is up to you. But try and make sure it's like it's a good one. It's a reasonable one. And so then once you've done that, then the next thing that you need to do is whoops, there we go. Is the preconditions and prep work. So the first thing that you kind of have to figure out is like, what kind of visa do you want to be on? And if you are coming to work as an engineer, then your options are pretty much, do you want to be on a work visa, which would be in the engineer category of the work visa, or do you want to be on the highly skilled professional visa? Now, both of these have different pros and cons. The highly skilled professional visa, it sounds kind of imposing, but really it's just basically like, do you have a certain amount of points based on certain criteria? Things like what level of education have you completed? Typically, a bachelor's degree is like the minimum requirement for a work visa, either a bachelor's degree or 10 years of experience. And then other factors for the highly skilled professional visa include like salary, your age, your years of experience, your Japanese JLPT, what's it called? Test completions, if you have any. Things like that. You also can get like bonus points if you went to a particularly prestigious university, based on a couple of like specific lists that the Japanese government approves of. So that's how you get in, the highly skilled professional visa. And then it has a couple of nice perks on top of like above, or like different from the work visa. So for example, like you can bring your parents to Japan as well, to help like take care of your children, or to take care of your you or your spouse. If you have one, if you have kids under the age of 7, then like your parents can also come and join you as like part of the perks of the HSP visa. And also it always gets a 5-year 5-year duration. The work visa can get anywhere from like 3 months to 5 years. But one really nice thing about the work visa is that if you were to change jobs, for example, then the only thing you have to do is notify immigration that you have changed jobs. They just want to make sure that your job status is, you're still working in Japan and like, working at a Japanese company and stuff. And so you just have to notify immigration, and then that's pretty much it. Whereas if you change jobs on the highly skilled professional visa, you have to basically reapply for the visa like entirely from scratch, which is really annoying from what I've heard. I never did the highly skilled professional visa, so I don't know. But so yeah, that's like number one thing that you have to kind of figure out. And then a couple of other things are like where you want to live. If you want to maximize salary, then like you would want to be in Tokyo, pretty much. That's kind of your only option. But if you're okay with taking like lower salary, you would still be able to get like 8 million plus, even in like Osaka or like Hokkaido and stuff. But there are different like trade-offs to all of that. And then also like you also want to figure out how much Japanese you want to use. which is somewhat related, but not entirely related to like where you want to live. Um, if you want to be like fully immersed in like a Japanese environment, which also you probably need to have pretty good Japanese in order to like do that. Then then you have kind of a larger gamut kind of companies that you can apply to. If you want to use no Japanese, then it's a much smaller category of companies that you can apply to. But then there are quite a few companies that do like kind of a mix, or like like the engineering team will typically have a pretty good understanding of English. They might not be able to speak it very well, but they will probably have like some understanding and like some writing fluency. So that's that's kind of like the first things you kind of want to figure out. And then the next thing all you need to do is you need to do the actual job search. And so this you can use LinkedIn and similar sites. There are a couple of sites such as like daijob.com and like Gaijinpot and some other ones. Career Cross comes to mind. That are like primarily focused on finding jobs for people from outside Japan. LinkedIn has, you'll find all of the big names on there, like recruiters for like Amazon and Google and such will be on LinkedIn. But then also like if you want kind of like a broader pool of companies that are not as common or maybe don't have like a LinkedIn presence, then that's where recruiters would come in. Recruiters, there's a lot of bad ones out there. I've spoken to recruiters who don't know what PTO is, like in any concept of the word. Like they could not tell me what the PTO for a particular position was. So not every recruiter is worth their salt. But there are still, it's kind of like the 10% rule. Like 10% of any category of thing is like really good. 10% of recruiters are pretty good. So, that's typically how the job search would go. And then, you would find these companies and you would apply to them and do the interviews and stuff. And then once you've done that, then you will have some offers. And from here, you can kind of negotiate, these offers. And so some of the, some aspects of like Japanese offers, there's obviously a base salary, and that's probably like the most common lever that you can and want to pull for negotiations, because it's it's base salary, it's guaranteed, like that's how it goes. Options are pretty common in startups for like senior roles and above. Stock grants themselves are not very common, so like RSUs will not usually be a thing except for big companies like Amazon and Google. Bonuses are also pretty common, and they do tend to be a significant chunk of your TC. At one company that I worked at, the bonuses were like 23% of like my total compensation. And it was once a year, so it was like, once a year you would like, have a big party at a hotel or whatever. Not actually, but it's something you could do. And if you're coming from abroad, then like you can also probably negotiate a little bit on like the relocation package and stuff. Signing bonus is another like common thing that you can kind of negotiate. Not every company is super flexible on signing bonuses, but some companies will, it's a thing that they also like offer as a lever. And so then, once you have negotiated and found an offer that you think is, commensurate to your desires and your skills and experience, then you would then, tell them I accept, and then you would start off the visa process. And the visa process is basically just bureaucracy at work. There's not really anything flexible here. What happens is the company who is offering you a job will get a certificate of eligibility, like just a straight piece of paper from Japan Immigration, that says that we want to hire this person to come, and work for our company in Japan. And then they will send this to you via physical mail. And then you would take the COE and your passport, and then application and the fees and whatever, to your local embassy or consulate. and then several days later you pick it up, or if you provided like there's also the option for them to mail it to you if you like provide them a pre-stamped envelope and stuff like that. But either way, you get your passport back with the visa inside. And then you fly to Japan, you get your residence card in exchange for the visa, and from this point, you are a resident of Japan on a working visa. And so once you have landed and you have your residence card, then that's when you have the fun stuff of landing. Oh gosh. Whoops. Sorry. That's when you have the fun stuff of, land. Sorry. Demo horrors. Landing and follow-ups, right? So your company will probably help you with the banking and phone number and apartment. Kind of the thing to keep in mind here is that the bank and phone number and apartment options that they provide you may not be, they'll just be the ones that they have a connection with. They may not be, like the most appropriate for your situation, right? And so you may want to do some shopping around once you have like kind of settled in and everything. Some other things, your company also as part of your taxes, like they will handle like the health insurance and the pension and the income tax. That stuff will pretty much be handled by your payroll system. The income tax, if you have additional income from like if you own a place that you're renting out in the US or something, then that would also it becomes a little bit more complicated because then you have like additional income. But it's not too difficult. Like you just have to like fill out your own tax return at the end of the year. Not a huge deal. Just something to keep in mind. And then my number. So my number is basically like kind of the equivalent of like a social security number in the US. It's you get a card basically that is like, it has some chip data and stuff in it. I don't know how that works exactly, but so you get a My Number card, and this has a specific number for you, and you use this card when you go to when you go to the clinic and when you go fill out your prescriptions and stuff. You use it for it's also used for your tax filings in some way, but I'm not totally sure how exactly. but this is something that you will need, and it's very handy to have. And then you'll also have to do like the bureaucracy of like the city hall registration. So, that's another thing. That's basically just like you would tell them that you now live at this address and, you are now a resident of this place. And then from there, that's when you can explore your neighborhood. Or if you are in temporary housing, let me scroll down a little bit. If you are in like temporary housing, then you can explore, the places that you are thinking about living. And then this is also a good opportunity, like, before you start your job and, have only the weekends as free time and stuff. It's a good place to like find the places for your hobbies and communities and things like that. And so, once you've done all that and you're kind of settled in and you've started working and all of that, and like, when you're getting around to like year 2 of being in Japan, then this is when you can start thinking about the future. And so, a couple of things to point out here. Residence taxes are kind of like state taxes versus federal taxes. Not exactly, but they're taxes that you would pay to like the place that you live. And there's a nifty little system called Furusata Noze, which is like it roughly translates to like hometown taxation system. And more or less, you can opt to redirect some of your residence taxes that you would pay to the place where you live to somewhere else, and then in exchange you would get like some kind of gift. This is basically just like a way, like a scheme for rich people to get free stuff. But also like, we small people can also make use of it. And it's really nice to get like, like you can use it for like rice and like fruit and toilet paper and stuff like that. It's very flexible. You can buy like a torigate, like the thing that they have at shrines. If you make like, some millions of dollars, then you can get that with your residence taxes. But just something to like that you should keep in mind whenever you get into year 2. And And then also, if you want to get permanent residency, then you should start thinking about the fast track point system. And if you don't have, the required amount of points, then this is where you would want to like start, thinking about like, how can I get more points so that I can, have the required amount of points whenever I do start my PR application. And so that brings us to kind of the end. This is from here, like, it's kind of open-ended. But if you want to get help with, any of this stuff, please send me an email at steven@rebasejapan.com, or you can also check out the website that I set up for Rebase, where you can, this is basically it. You can do some cool things like, we have a very basic like take-home calculator, for if you were to, if you came to Tokyo and you had like a salary of like 12 million yen, then like, what would your disposable income look like based on some basic numbers and approximations? There's a couple of different things you can change, like the city, the apartment size, and stuff like that. We have a little lifestyle calculator here. And then there's a couple of other tools. Let me change the stream thing a little bit. So we have a comparison for, comparing a Japan salary versus a U.S. salary, and then a couple of like choice cities. That if you wanted to like, compare these, and so, Seattle typically comes out on top for roughly equivalent things for some reason. I'll investigate why that is later. But yeah, so this is something that you can use to kind of, take a look and see how much disposable income you would have, for particular salaries across different cities in the US versus Japan. And then we also have an HSP calculator. So if you wanted to, if you wanted to put in your particular situation, so, suppose you have a bachelor's with 10 plus years of experience, and you're, less than under the age of, or between the ages of 30 and 34, and you have a 12 million yen salary, then like you can apply for PR in 1 year. And yeah, so that is all I have for today. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. And please, feel free to comment, like, subscribe. Let me know if you want anything else to, what kind of videos you want to see about, any of this stuff. Any extra tools you want to see on the website. Yeah, thanks for watching, and have a good one. I'll see you in the next one.